Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Episode 5, Star Wars Ahsoka, is in the books, and we're here to break down everything that we saw during the, I guess, the 5th of 8 chapters here in Episode 5. Joining me tonight, as always, first up, he's the man behind Bro Before Pros Gaming over on Twitch. Johnny, what's going on, dude?
Oh, not a whole lot. Yeah, it's been a long day, and I'm happy to get this in the book.
I have no idea where you're going with that. And I know nobody else can see you at the moment. I can. I really don't have a read on what you thought about the episode.
So have to wait and see.
Also joining us, it's Randy, man. How you doing? And I guess just to start, did it live up to any of the social media hype that was going on? Not spoiler stuff, but obviously everybody hyping up episode 5 after the end of episode 4.
Well, all I can say is, given how long the past 2 days have been work-wise, this was definitely a very welcome reprieve. It was definitely worth the wait. Of course, now I'm just going, okay, can it be next week already? Because the way they ended it, man, it's like, what? I need more. It just felt like I just need more. As far as living up to the hype, given all the speculation of what we were going to see, there's certain things I'm not mad at that we didn't get to see, but for the most part, I felt like it did.
Yeah, I mean, it was regardless if all your expectations were met or not. I think it was the type of episode that, at the very least, will definitely have the Star Wars community talking. Johnny, I mean, I know you don't really dabble in spoilers anymore, so you were able to go into it pretty fresh. Did it live up to your own expectations that you had set after the end of the last episode?
Absolutely, it did. Everything that it sort of promised, it provided, and there was so much nuance and so much story and so much, the phrase has taken on such a negative connotation, but at its heart, it's a phrase that's useful for this. There was just so much fan service and it was integral to the plot at hand. It was just, it had everything I wanted it to have. It had its moments of levity. It had its moments of, intense, punch you in the gut with feelings. And it had those moments of, pure, unadulterated nostalgia. It had everything I wanted and so much more.
I know one of the common complaints, and I don't necessarily disagree with it, is maybe the amount of time spent with Hera's side of things. I would just ask people to remember that this is only episode 5 of 8. 5 of 8, so there's plenty of time left to do other things. And I believe the word is that next week's episode is as long as this week's episode was. So that's good, at least. So first of all, if you're just joining us, share your thoughts, just in general, spoiler discussion, any thought that you might have on the episode, put it in the chat now. Can't say we'll get to it right this second, but we will go over initial thoughts to begin with. And if you have any deep thoughts, feel free to share them in the chat. I thoroughly enjoyed the episode. Like I said, my only nitpick is I think we spent too much time with the other people. But it was really, really good. And I mean, Hayden, people have been asking for Hayden to have his moments or get his moment. I think that after all these years, he definitely had his moment and definitely held his own. I think anybody who's crying bad actor after that,
But oh my God, he's such a bad actor. He's going to ruin everything.
Right. Yes, we know the type. It was awesome. And I feel so good for him too, because he gets such a bad rap for stuff that wasn't necessarily his fault. And outside of the story, I'm just really happy for Hayden Christensen right now, and hopefully it sparks more for him, obviously. So the episode in general, I thought it was really, really good. I thought the fact that these are just initial thoughts, the fact that they didn't linger on Ahsoka the White, oh my God, what's it mean? It's it's just close, people. Just close. Let's calm down. Did I lose you guys? Oh, yeah, I did lose you guys for a second.
You did freeze for a second there.
Yeah, I think the internet just hiccup. The luxury of being in the middle of nowhere. So I don't know what to say, because it's such an incredible achievement to be able to provide the fan service they did, and yet still fit the overall narrative of the show going on. They could have done so many different things, and they still might. But I thought, if you really know your Star Wars, there were things said without things needing to be said during this episode. And if you know the history of the two characters, or even, the characters themselves individually. So yeah, this was just a fantastic achievement. And, give me Hayden Christensen wielding a lightsaber anytime. The dude knows what he's doing. What can I say? Where do you guys want to start? Why don't we start with the chat? Let's get to some of the chat's thoughts, and then we'll just go around the circle and splurge everywhere. Splurge our fandom guts out. Or spill our fandom guts out, pardon me. What an episode. I felt last week's episode to be subpar, but this week's was amazing. I thought last week's episode was fantastic. I forget where I rated it on Johnny's favorite rating scale, but we'll get to that later.
I think you're at 4.5.
Yeah, I think so. No, 4. I think 4. No, because episode 1 I had 4.5.
No, maybe you're right. I had it at 4.5.
So I think I had it at 4. I have to go back and listen anyway. George says episode 5 was awesome. Zach says 8 out of 10 for him. There's still one element about the show and Rebels that I'm personally just not a fan of. I'm going to assume it's the Purgle, which I think they've been handled much better in live action than in the Rebel show for me personally. But Jesse, I had issues with how the actress portrayed young Ahsoka. I was glad to not see Sabine. Jeez, critic. I mean, to each his own, I suppose. I thought she was fine. I believe that actress. I don't know her name, but I know she's in Barbie, the movie that just came out. I don't know if she plays young Barbie or someone else. I just know she's in that movie. And I thought she was capable. I think most people's problem with her performance is going to be, oh, the makeup didn't look right or it didn't match the TV show. And like,
they complain about Rosario looking like that. Shut up.
Yeah, no, like, and I want to just bring up Zach's, and I don't want to rain on Zach's parade because he's definitely not this type. But I've gotten so fucking sick of hearing for years now, we need to see the Clone Wars armor in live action. And my honest response to that is, if you got it tonight and you thought it looked good, great, awesome. But in my opinion, and it is just my opinion, who gives a shit? It was about story beats and narrative and the two together and having a moment. And I honestly did not think the Clone Wars armor looked good on him. I thought it had this weird look in the middle that made it looked oversized a bit. But to those that loved it, I'm thrilled, and I'm thrilled you got to see Rex. Did we see two different versions of Rex there? I know it was very brief, but I'm pretty sure there was two different sets of armor, because obviously the Siege of Mandalore is right at the end. And we had man, what the hell's that planet called again now?
The first one?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't.
Where the Twi'leks are from. Oh my god, it's on the tip of my tongue. Anybody in the chat, Twi'lek planet. I just can't. I'm pretty sure that's where they were, though. I think there was something for everybody in this episode. You got your Clone Wars armor, you got Rex, you got two different versions of
Ryloth?
Ryloth, thank you. Fuck you, bud. If everyone was naked, the show would never make it to TV because it's actually important, and they nailed it. I mean, yeah. I mean, we do a Game of Thrones show. Costumes are incredibly important. But
wait, did we watch the same Game of Thrones?
Touche. Yeah, no, I don't know. It wasn't a big deal to me. To me, it was about the moment between the characters the most. I do want to address something.
Is that right? I'm sorry, off topic, but on topic. Was young Ahsoka young Gamora?
Maybe. Is young Gamora in the Barbie movie?
Yes.
Well, then probably. And
I thought it when I watched it. Now I'm just trying to confirm.
Disney does like to retool some things. Man, Zach's saying it was Teth, Ryloth, and Mandalore. I do know those three were rumored. Mandalore is definite. Ryloth was definite. I must be did the middle one just happen so quickly, or is it just so tied into the first one? I don't remember 3. I remember 2. So the problem's coming on here and
yeah, the middle one I wasn't sure about because it seemed just sort of so fast that you sort of just assume it's still Ryloth.
That's probably what it was. Is that just where they're walking up to all the wounded?
Yeah, when you see
okay. Yeah, see, I just
when you see Ahsoka with the wounded clone and Anakin's off talking with the other whoever they were.
I mean, I can't wait to just get into what everybody thinks of, the world between worlds and Anakin and Ahsoka and all that. And Randy, I'm gonna let you take it here, man. Take the conversation wherever you want, and we'll hop on the Randy train.
Well, yeah, let's definitely start there. Obviously, I thought it was interesting how it's portrayed because there were elements of it we'd never seen before. So I like the fact that we saw something new with the fact that the roads themselves could be shattered. You would have thought, watching Rebels with what Palpatine was doing, that he would have potentially damage some of those roads, but those paths. But the fact that Anakin was able to, or I mean, would you call him a force shade or a ghost? Or because it was Anakin, but it definitely was. It definitely didn't feel like Anakin. Maybe like just a representation of the Force, trying to teach her a lesson. I'm still trying to figure that one out. But the fact that you could actually destroy the pathways, and it just dropped her into, the Clone Wars and her young self, and I was just like, the transition there was just absolutely amazing, and I was in awe of it. I got emotional because it's just the way they portrayed live action Clone Wars, because we hadn't really, if you've watched the series, that's one thing, but to see some elements from that in live action and some of the transitions they did, it was so well done. I was just blown away by it.
I'm glad you went here first. I was worried we were gonna have to wait all episode to get this. So we actually I mentioned this in our group chat today, and I chose not to put the video up today until after the episode. But this has been made for about 3 days now, because I knew this would be the debate. Is it real? Did it happen? Is it Anakin? And my answer to it all is yes, yes, and yes again. Dave Filoni has been pulling from Heir to the Empire all through this series. Maybe there's people that aren't realizing it, but he is, and that definitely is going to show in the next 3 episodes. In Heir to the Empire, Luke Skywalker talked with Obi-Wan Kenobi while he's not conscious, because at that point it's gotten to a point where it's the only way Obi-Wan can reach him is in his dreams. So the idea that, and I'm not saying Randy said this, but I'm seeing this a lot online, that it could not have been real because it wasn't actually a Force ghost is just not accurate at all. In fact, there's an entire Star Wars novel series, Fate of the Jedi, where dream walking and seeing those that have gone is literally, the second biggest part of the entire novel series. And as we've seen with Mandalorian, as we've seen with Book of Boba Fett, they're pulling more and more from Legends. So until someone comes up with a damn good reason why that wasn't Anakin that makes me believe otherwise, I think it was. And Johnny, I don't know about you, but did you catch him reference Luke? Because I caught him reference Luke.
I didn't.
So him and Ahsoka are talking, and she says, I will not fight you. And he says, I've heard that before. And so that can be used not only as, Ahsoka doesn't say that to Anakin in Rebels. I'd have to go back and watch, but I'm 99.9%.
I thought she did.
I'm 99.9% sure she doesn't, because
I think she said something similar, but I don't think it was exactly the same words that Luke used in Return of the Jedi.
Which is exactly the same words that Ahsoka uses in this. And Anakin goes, huh. And then even at the end where he's like, there's still hope for you. Like he taught her the lesson. There's nothing in this episode that makes me believe that they weren't actually in the world between worlds, and that he wasn't actually talking to her. I also think that you see hints, I know for a fact, Shadows of the Sith, the book that came out, Anakin Skywalker does become a Force ghost. But in that book, Luke envisions him as a shadow warrior, literally the title of the episode. So there's definitely a track record in canon for that as well. But during that, you can tell that Anakin is, as much as he's Anakin, it's almost like he's cursed in a way, as there'll always be part of Vader with him too. And I thought you've seen that in this episode, but obviously Anakin has a hold on it. I mean, I think it's done in a way that it's vague and people can interpret it the way they want. I'm simply saying that when you look at stuff that's happened in canon with Anakin, now there's 2 major things already. From a certain point of view, Return of the Jedi and Shadows of the Sith, and now this is the 3rd. and they all add up together. They all sort of tie into one another. I think there's enough evidence to support that he was there, and frankly, I don't know if there's enough evidence to support that he wasn't. Although Randy's theory of, it could have been the Force showing, Ahsoka a lesson, teaching her a lesson or a vision through Anakin. That's possible. They're technically one and the same now, right? So,
Weren't they always?
well, yeah, right, right. I know you're not a big fan of the midichlorian thing and the Chosen One thing, but
I don't say the M word, but I can deal with the Chosen One. Yeah, I can deal with prophecy. We don't talk about the M word.
What do you think, Randy? Did I lay down enough evidence to change your mind on that, or are you still not convinced that it was Anakin?
Well, I was never not convinced, but it's just I thought it was the way they did it, and I liked like the transitions between him and Vader, like showing, him walking away, and then she sees Vader, and then him transition back to Anakin. I thought that was really cool. I still feel like it. To me, I'm like 90% sure it was Anakin, but I also felt like this was also, whether it's the Force or Anakin or both, it's like, okay, you have to choose to live. And that's kind of like we said last week, she was definitely in a limbo of sorts, on that cusp of life and death. And she had to choose life to be able to move forward. And they did a really great job of just the symbolism they used in that to really hit a home run with that.
Excuse me. Johnny, what was your take on it? I know Tommy just got in here, but we haven't got your take on Anakin and Anakin, the World Between Worlds. I know you and I have over the years done a bunch of stuff on Star Wars lore, and Force Ghost has been one of them. Mm-hmm. I just don't see yet, anyways, throughout the first 5 episodes, a shred of proof that wasn't Anakin, and just a ton to support it, especially in canon and in Legends. And honestly, D. Daly, pardon me, brings up Anakin as balance, the light and the dark, as he should be. And that's unique because Anakin Skywalker's Force Ghost was supposed to be in The Force Awakens. And what we've seen in this episode was literally the premise of his Force Ghost in The Force Awakens that ended up not making the final draft. And, it was something that sort of switched between Anakin and Vader. He had grasp on it, but like, when you think about it, he should be punished. He should have to live with some side of Vader for the rest of eternity. He killed millions of people, right? So where do you fall on it, man? Or do you think it's just an aberration? Or do you think she's just, in limbo and imagining it all? Where do you fall on Anakin Skywalker debate?
I'm 100%. 100% that was Anakin Skywalker. As a forced apparition, or, however, spirits interact in the World Between Worlds, because that is fairly unexplored territory, and we don't know that. Our only true knowledge of how Force Ghosts interact with the environment is in the everyday world. This is only the 3rd, 4th time we've ever been in the World Between Worlds, period. So it's fairly unexplored territory. And I'm 100% positive that was Anakin Skywalker. It would literally take Dave Filoni standing in front of me saying, yeah, no, that was just the Force manifesting as Anakin helping Ahsoka, for me to even remotely try and process that theory, because otherwise it's hogwash, to me, because the mannerisms were Anakin. The actions were Anakin. The words were Anakin. And, well, I would certainly believe the point that the Force can manifest itself as what you need to see to experience that. It's not going to get those facial reactions, those sort of little twitches in the cheek and the mouth, the smirks, the smiles, all of those little nuances that make Anakin Skywalker are not going to be there in a Force representation of Anakin that isn't actually Anakin's spirit. And I'm confident. You saw that so many times piercing through, like in that moment where he just completely switched from Darth Vader to Anakin after the battle, right before he said, there's hope for you yet. That little twerk of his face was Anakin. It was perfect. And seeing him at balance, being able to, still be able to sort of channel Vader and tap that anger inside of him that's always been there. Even as, little tiny Annie in the pod race, in the Boonty of Classic, still had that anger inside him. He just let it consume him, and obviously, Palpatine is the reason for that, but he let it consume him. He let it take over, and it was in the driving seat. And now he is able to drive and tap into that anger as a force of good, as it is, because, it gave Ahsoka needed this lesson. It was perfect because you saw it all throughout, and even in earlier episodes, she believes that her destiny is death and destruction. Because that's everything that's come before her. And I love that moment where she finally realizes that no, it's not. Like the whole purpose of this was to live. You have to fight. She finally realized that sometimes you just have to live. And it was a great moment because it allowed her to sort of embrace everything of her, her forefathers, I guess, when you follow the Padawan train, back to Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon's sitting there looking at that and he's like, yes, if you'd have listened to me 3 generations ago, you'd have figured this out already. Because that's pretty much Qui-Gon Jinn at his essence. Fight when you have to fight, love when you have to love, and live when you have to live. That's Qui-Gon Jinn. And if the Jedi had learned that 40 years ago, the world would be a very different place right now. But I digress.
One guy wouldn't have killed 10,000 of them, essentially.
Well, let's not forget Luke's death count. I mean, the guy blew up the Death Star. That was millions of lives there.
That's true.
So,
a little different. I like that the lesson, he had a lesson to teach her, is not a lesson from Obi-Wan. It's not a lesson from Qui-Gon. It's not a lesson from Yoda, but rather the lesson that Luke teaches him at the end. And that's the point that he is trying to get across to her. And he's even you can tell he gets pissed off at a point because she hints at him becoming Vader basically. And he's like, are we really here again? Didn't we do this
already?
And I really liked that moment between the two. Tommy is joining us, who has dove into some of that expanded universe material in Legends and in canon. I know he just read Shadows of the Sith, or listened to Shadows of the Sith recently. Dude, what did you think of the episode, and where do you fall on the Anakin debate that's taken over the internet right now anyway?
I am team was Anakin. It lines up with, Shadows of the Sith is all that comes to my mind. I don't know what else is out there. But that was relatively recent for me, so that's definitely still in the front of my mind. Johnny did a great job, throwing some other stuff that really, makes it more convincing. And what I got to throw out there, this is unrelated to the question. The lightsaber red, that was awesome. That was a great touch that we never got in Revenge of the Sith. I think it was teased in some promotional materials or some figures. They came with a red lightsaber. The episode 3 video game, the alternate ending, he took a saber from Sidious and then executed him on the spot. I think that otherwise, that is probably the first time we've ever seen Anakin Skywalker, especially in live action, use a red lightsaber like that. And that was awesome. That whole duel was awesome. The dynamics, awesome. The only thing I thought was a little bit odd, I'm still scratching my head a little bit on what the lesson was. But, when they first started that sequence, I thought it was going to end with Anakin essentially knighting her and like, oh, she's officially a Jedi again. And that's not what happened. And I gotta tell you, I might have really liked that, but I completely respect them for not doing that. So I just threw a whole lot at you guys. So by all means, go on ahead.
I think the lesson is a lesson that she needs to know for what she finds out after she comes out of the dream. And that is, yeah, Sabine just went with them. And it would be easy for Ahsoka to be pissed and done with her. And anybody can be saved is the lesson, in my opinion.
Oh, there's also the Jason thing right after she wakes up. You know, that realization of, wait, Jason heard the battle?
Right? Like there's
wait a
no
minute.
more proof than you need than that.
Like maybe my legacy isn't death and destruction, but it's the future.
Yeah. I just think the lesson is the classic lesson of you, despite the Jedi not thinking or thinking otherwise back in the day, is that even the person who seems most lost can be saved in the end. And valuable lesson. I like that you brought up the lightsaber too, because not only is it on the teaser poster of Revenge of the Sith that shows Anakin wielding it and his cape's like turning into Vader's helmet. It was on figures too, and we never did get the red lightsaber, so it was a beautiful touch and a fan service moment too. So that was done well. Randy, where do you want to go next, man? I mean, I know there's so much to dissect from the Anakin side of things and the Ahsoka side of things. Take us away.
Well, see, what I will say, one of the things I liked is that once Ahsoka came out of all that, the fact that she's smiling. It's almost like she had that release, that like she's free from what we were talking about last week. Like she finally has that peace of mind to just be able to go out and do what needs to be done, but still be in the moment. Something that Qui-Gon did try to teach Obi-Wan back in episode 1. Be mindful of the moment you're in rather than looking towards the future. And it was just great to see like that complete change in her after everything she went through. I really felt like, and let me just say, I'm with you on Hayden Christensen having a lightsaber, because the man just, that choreography was absolutely amazing. So I'm definitely all for that.
Yeah, I mean, I dug it. I liked the way it came across on screen. It was well done, and like obviously the two had chemistry, and obviously there was stunt work done. I really liked the way they presented it in this episode. I always thought, even prior to like reading anything about it, that there was a chance this episode was gonna, come across almost like Scrooge a bit, and I definitely think there's that element there in this episode. But I dig it. Like, I don't really know what else to say at the moment. There's other things I want to get to that are more for later. Dustin says that love the Clone Wars Anakin live action. Really thought they did a good job with how Anakin looked. I love the hint at him becoming Vader. And he is like, really? That's what this is about? Right? That was a huge moment for me. Like, haven't we kind of already done this? Like, we're not here for my lesson. I've learned my lesson. You need to learn yours now. And I really appreciated the way that came across. He also says, such a great lightsaber fight. Love seeing the choreography closer to episode 3. That stuff was perfection. Would have liked to see a little less fog. Yeah, like that's a budgetary thing, right? That's a budgetary thing, and you're also on stagecraft, and they wanted to do that, no doubt, for as cheap as they could, while still making it look good. And considering it's a transition from the animated series, I still think it served its purpose and came across well. And honestly, the visuals I thought were fantastic because it allowed them to do all those cool transitions. The fog, it almost had, I guess there were just very sci-fi elements, but honestly, I think of horror movies when I see that and some of the transitions that they do. And I thought that was apparent in this episode. Mr. Ty Nelson, what's going on, buddy? Hope you're well. Does it really matter does it matter if it was really Anakin, the Force, or all in her head? If so, why? It's going to sound like the most cliche, dumb, bullshit internet answer for you, man. But for me personally, I don't think it would have mattered if it was Anakin or the Force, because to me, they're one and the same. But if it was like just in her head and she dreamed it and that was all, yeah, that'd be a problem for me. That would feel very Disney era Star Wars, kind of cheaping out in the moment. But I don't think there's any indication of that at all. I think there's just a long history of Force ghosts. Specifically, your guy, man, your guy that you played, Jason, who pops back up, even though he died a Sith, pops back up in Fate of the Jedi. And that's when they're doing the dream walking thing and going basically into the other world. And so there is a history of this in Legends and most recently in Shadows of the Sith. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I think people got Hayden on screen again, which they liked. More importantly, they got Anakin and Ahsoka. But yeah, that was flow walking though. But they still left their conscious body in order to do it. The Siege of Mandalore was great, seeing the Maul followers. I will say this. I don't know if anybody else thought it, but for a brief second, I was like, especially after all the Merrick theories, I was like, are we about to see Sam Witwer as Maul? Like, just out of nowhere? Because I don't think they'll bring Ray Park back with the stuff that was surrounding him. Who knows? But I just thought there was a moment where we were going to see Maul. Kind of glad we didn't.
It would have been
too much
to do about nothing, because it would have been like a little 30-second thing that would have left us more like, that's it.
So I believe anyway, they reshot Ahsoka versus Vader. That was supposed to be in this episode from Star Wars Rebels. And they chose not to show it. And I kind of get why. Like, I don't think you need to see that because you essentially see Ahsoka versus Vader in this episode. And, as important as that story was, the beats that story was hidden back in Rebels are not the most like concurrent to what's going on right now in the Ahsoka TV show. So
it would have played against the whole Anakin sort of, really? We're doing this what this is about? If you completely redo that whole battle, it doesn't further the story. Like, it doesn't further the lesson in any way, Let
me ask you guys this as Clone Wars fans. A lot of people love Matt Lanter's performance as Anakin in that show. And they gravitate towards it even because we didn't see like a lot of lighthearted moments with Anakin in the prequel trilogy. I thought that Hayden, I would think Filoni would know, did a good job of coming across more like Matt Lanter's Anakin Skywalker from the Clone Wars, which makes sense because they were in the Clone Wars. But I've seen at times where you have actors or actresses just decide we're going to do it our own way. I at least felt that way. Did any of you guys get that at all from this episode?
I think
I did for sure.
I think for me, it was more a testament of Matt's skill that he was, able to channel Hayden so well that it is, almost seamless between the two. And you definitely saw that here. That it wasn't Hayden trying to be Matt trying to be Hayden. It was both of them sort of channeling Anakin in a way that neither performance feels bigger than the character, yet they all seamlessly flow into one character.
Randy, did you have anything further you wanted to add on that?
No, I mean, I agree, 100%. I definitely, like Johnny said, it's just there was both actors, basically not really bigger than the character, and so both performances, whether you're going back to Clone Wars or what we saw here, it was Anakin. It was 100% Anakin from Clone Wars, and yeah, kudos to the writing of Filoni to just kind of, and the direction to just kind of say, hey, just be yourself, kind of be the character that you've always been, and I thought that was just done really well.
One major consideration for me is that Anakin Skywalker, as we get him with Episode 2 and Episode 3, is not as fleshed out as we have him by the time we get the Clone Wars. There is no Ahsoka Tano yet when Episode 3 came out. It's not a thing. That's why they had to still when they decided to bring her back, they still had to write her off somehow. So, to me, that's a very big consideration to keep in mind. The character is different, still consistent in some ways, but Hayden did a fantastic job in representing that Clone Wars Anakin. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. Like, Anakin has so many more layers than he did in Revenge of the Sith. Like, Hayden would have way more to work with now, way more to reference now, whether it's through himself, through books, or through the animated series, obviously. So that's a really good point to bring up. What did we think about, like, I know it's hard, like, for me, that's probably the hardest time I've had paying attention to lightsaber duels, because for me it was more about no talk. talk please, and so, like, that was kind of weird, but I definitely want to go back and pay closer attention to the duels themselves. But yeah, it felt very Revenge of the Sith. I know someone mentioned it earlier in the chat, but I really dug it. It looked like two people that knew what they were doing.
So to me, it felt more like a seamless blend of prequel era choreography with original trilogy intent, if that makes sense. Like, it wasn't just sort of flash for the sake of flash, like some of the battles in the prequel trilogy were. Like some of those, like the Yoda fights were just sort of flashy for the sake of being flashy. Him jumping around and bouncing around because he's CGI, we can do whatever we want. That some of them just sort of felt showy, whereas this one felt more, like it had sort of that intensity and choreography of the prequel trilogy with the intensity and, emotions of the original trilogy.
Dustin says, I think her seeing flashes of him as Vader was more effective in that he has resolved his past and come back to the light, and she still sees that part of him and has that conflict within her. Which makes sense, because she got to see him as Vader up front, close and personal too, right?
As far as we know, like this is also the first time she's seen him since the battle in Rebels, right? Like there's no
we have no context
at
that
this
Luke
point.
has had
There's
that
been no
discussion with her.
interaction between the two in the interim.
See,
we don't have confirmation that Luke has told her that.
Here's where the timeline gets screwy. Okay, is when the hell did that conversation take place now? Because the series starts just after episode 5 of season 2 of Rebels. Where the hell was her time to stop in and visit Luke and Grogu? That's where I do think you run into.
When you said Rebels, did you mean the Mandalorian?
Sorry, the Mandalorian. Yes.
Okay.
She's literally not had time to have that discussion. So are we meant to believe she goes to the new galaxy, comes back from the new galaxy, and is just having that discussion with Luke and Boba Fett now? I don't think so, because everything that I've heard is the back half of this season takes place technically alongside the end of Mandalorian season 3, which clearly takes place after the Book of Boba Fett. So I think they've kind of written I think they fucked up a little bit basically here on the timeline, and that's what you get when you're trying to move 10,000 pieces into place. And unless we're going to see some time travel crap, I really hope not. But don't even get started on that time travel crap, Tommy. Let's go around the table. Anything you guys want to bring up specifically that has anything to do with the episode, or anything they want going forward? We'll start with Randy.
So, obviously, one of the talking points I definitely wanted to bring up is how awesome the Purgle looked. Like getting actual close up look at the Purgle and how they were used, and I really thought that was just, even though I thought it was actually a better use of them than what we saw in Rebels. I felt like it was just just awesome. It was one of those things where even I again, another spot where I got a little emotional, because it's just the whole getting to see everything up close, and just the CG used for it was so well done. Thought it was just great how, Ahsoka gets to ride in the mouth of the largest Purgle to the next galaxy. That would have been. I kind of thought they were going to try to attach to, essentially kind of hook onto the Purgle, but I'll take it any way I can get it. And I thought that would, like I said, I just thought they were used very well, and I like the fact that Ahsoka just didn't care. She's like, hey, it's better than just kind of sitting around doing nothing. Let's see where they take us. So that ties into the whole thing of just how her personality has shifted after she learned her lesson. And I think that was just a great way to end it.
That was an Anakin plan if I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
What would Anakin do? That.
You open your mouth, let's go in. Did he understand me? I don't know, but let's find out.
A lot of people have been Zach, I think Zach sent me a picture that I'm going to be able to pull up here in a couple minutes. I believe it's a meme he made. If he didn't make it, then he found it, but I thought he made it. That I can't wait to share with you guys. He also added in Finding Nemo vibes much. True. Very, very true. I've seen
Pinocchio
that
vibes, but okay.
Pinocchio too. Yeah. Pinocchio as well. Zach says he made it. So I will get working on that. Sorry. Ty says, personally happy that the rumored alternate universes didn't happen in the World Between Worlds. Not sure whatever happened with all that. I can tell you it was filmed. I can tell you it was filmed. I can tell you that there's a sequence where young Ahsoka battles Anakin on Mustafar. I wouldn't be surprised if they just cut it. As far as I know, though, the extent of that was that and something else, and I know it's not in the show. That's been out there now for like a month, which is, I mean, we've seen Mustafar. That's not really what the point of this was. It would, to be fair, it kind of goes against, as Johnny said, the lesson here. The lesson doesn't need to be, Anakin, how did he become Vader, etc. The lesson was Ahsoka's lesson. Anakin's learned his lesson.
If you're going to show any battle in sort of, not necessarily an alternate, but I guess in an alternate, could have been if you'd sort of changed the Jedi ending where Anakin redeems himself. If you sort of insert Ahsoka in the Luke position to see Vader redeem himself, could have been an interesting play to learn that lesson. Where your past, because that's the lesson, right? Your past is the past, not your future, right? So it would have been sort of an interesting thing to see that, or to see her experiencing Anakin's redemption, because to this point we don't know, how that's gone. And this, because because we did, like you said, the timeline is just a giant mishmash of chaos at this point.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that they weren't a little more careful with that.
They flew too close to the sun, and like Icarus, their wings got burned.
Did you just say Grisk?
I said Icarus, but I
Oh,
don't
okay.
think Grisk can fly.
Anyway, yeah, I really loved a lot of what this episode did, and I like Randy's points on the Purgle. I'm curious if the Purgle is the part of the episode Zach didn't like. I thought it was really well done, and everybody's been harping. A lot of people online have been harping on Rosario Dawson's Ahsoka being, she's dark and, she's always crossing her arms, and this isn't the Ahsoka that I remember. Well, look,
That's not my Ahsoka.
I'm sorry, I'm in my mid-30s. I cross my arms a hell of a lot more than I did at 16 too.
I don't look, when you watch a character as a teenager, and then you watch a character who's, I'm not doing the math here too well, but 40s is my guess, early 40s, late 30s. Of course, they're going to be different. Me at 13 is a lot different than me at 35. Different priorities, different intentions. So they're supposed to be different, but that's the problem when you judge everything without seeing the entire 8 episodes together, and which we still haven't. Is if she was just the Ahsoka who is, easygoing and had that Anakin in her from the get-go, what would be the point of having this episode? Part of it was finding herself again too, right? It was a personal journey. And I thought that, I think Randy pointed out, they very intentionally, had Rosario act quite differently post whatever that was with Anakin.
Yeah.
I was very much Team Ashley when things were first being announced and rumored and such, but I feel that I've really come around to seeing Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano. She's if she had to prove herself to the fans, I think she has more than proved herself to the fans. I really appreciate the portrayal of the character. To answer your question earlier, Sean, things that might be hanging in the air for us with this episode, I was really hoping we would have gotten Thrawn and or Ezra in a cliffhanger. Really hoping we would have. It would have set the last 3 episodes up as its own little okay, we did this. Now we're going into the tail end of it. But it is what it is. I imagine we'll get at least Thrawn next episode.
I don't want to answer that question.
Well, I mean,
you need to stop spoiling yourself is what you need to do.
Well, look, when you do this stuff, Zach and I were talking about this with House of the Dragon season 2, because we have content we got to do for it. And it's well, what do you want to be spoiled on and what don't you want to be spoiled on here?
You got to know ahead of time so you know what to be ready to cover.
I've been able to stay away from certain Ahsoka things. I just wasn't able to stay away from spoilers from this episode that came out last December.
I was going to ask you that because that came to my mind. So was this what you knew ahead of time?
Yeah, and little bits of next episode, but yeah.
Okay.
I think they are giving you what you want, to my knowledge. I'm not saying I know for sure, but you said you wanted 3 more episodes where it'd be okay, now it's that side of the story and the other guy. I think that's exactly what's happened. I don't think there's anything left to do in the known galaxy.
Sans the Thrawn and the potentially Ezra little cliffhanger. Yeah.
I suspect, and I don't know for sure, that it's going to be nothing but Thrawn, Ezra, and Ahsoka the rest of the way. So, not necessarily all together by any means, but that's where the story has shifted. That I would assume would be everybody's natural conclusion from the end of this episode. I would hope we're not going to go spend a bunch of time having Hera get chewed out by
the whole next episode is Hera's trial on Coruscant.
Don't jinx it. Do not jinx it. Oof.
Man, by the way, I mean, this is such a small note, but no wonder the fucking New Republic crumbled. Like,
Yeah, I agree. When I heard that, when that whole scene went down, I was like, seriously? Okay, this is how you treat your heroes. I see how it is. Mm-hmm. But at least you got your little your Leia Organa name drop there briefly.
So that's
So that
Senator
was kind of,
Organa.
so that was cool. I do like how Hera's coming to realize that whether she likes it or not, Jason may very well start be heading down the path of the Jedi, even as much as she doesn't want it.
I loved the exchange between him and Hu Yang.
You have a training room on a starship? Can you teach me? No. Do you know how to make a lightsaber? Yes. Can you teach me? No. It was so perfect. It was perfect.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was great. Fucking David Tennant killing it.
It's not like I haven't said for the better part of 10 years he's amazing.
Ahsoka's got neck pain. I'd be grumpy too. Probably heavy. Right? Her getting dressed for set each day must be a fucking royal pain in the ass.
It's probably not much different than wearing a wig except for the green.
Letting go. Yes, letting go. You know what? Let me go back and I don't know if I can say that, but yes, I think letting go is part of that lesson too. That she's taught, because eventually that's what Anakin had to do. He had to let go. Oh, that's a personal message. Sorry. Ty says it'll be interesting to see if the character lightens up now that she's officially Ahsoka the White. I think she's just Ahsoka with a white Jedi cloak. I didn't see any.
It's a Lord of the Rings joke, pal.
Like Gandalf the White. Okay.
Yes.
I've only seen Lord of the Rings one time, people. That's it. The whole trilogy one time, but they were
I'm not a Lord of the Rings major fan, but like
once
I've seen it at least a few times. One of which was like leading up to Rings of Power, so
it was a very long day. We were sick as balls, and we watched the extended versions start to finish all in one day. It's all we did.
I love the movies, and I can't even do that.
I've
never done that. I don't have the. No.
The extended editions at that. Jeez.
I can binge watch an entire season of a television show in one day, easy peasy. But sit down and watch all 3 Lord of the Rings movies back to back to back in the extended cuts? No, I can't do that.
Sorry, I missed Jake's thing earlier here. Wait, did I read this one?
I thought you put it up, but I could be wrong.
I'm going to read it again. It's been a very long time since my high expectations for something Star Wars related were actually met. 10 out of 10 all the way through. So what you're saying is you're giving it 5 lightsabers out of 5 lightsabers, and not a blaster and not a thermal detonator. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? We'll get to that in due time. Even without the flashback, every interaction and piece of dialogue was hitting all the right notes for me. And the Clone Wars stuff was just a big old drizzle of chocolate on top. Dustin, think we are done seeing Anakin? I will let the other 3 individuals answer this question.
I'm going with no.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think there's gonna be times when, I think at least 1 or 2 more times where we'll get to see Anakin again.
I could just as easily see them not showing him to us again.
Interesting. A little bit of
maybe like in one pivotal moment he will appear toward the end, or maybe it's like not a flashback, but like a send off at the end once all has been made well and right. If we even get that. But I could just as easily see, nope, that was it. The end of one episode and one half of one episode.
We'll have to wait and see, right? There's 3 episodes left. The nice thing is the next episode, as we mentioned off the top, I believe is rumored to be just as long as this one. So I hope, like, we're too deep into this now to have some quick 29-minute thing. In my opinion, we need to spend time. We need to spend a lot of time with Thrawn. Frankly, I mean, you advertised him pretty heavily at Star Wars Celebration and through media, and did a bunch of interviews with Lars Mikkelsen. So my guess is he will get a heavy load of screen time the rest of the way.
As he should.
Yeah, for sure, right? Like, don't be wrong. The Ahsoka Anakin stuff's great. Thrawn's above that for me, simply because I've been taking in Thrawn material a lot longer than Ahsoka material. But
I mean, we have to see, man. We might end up hating what they do with Thrawn here. You probably know what they're already doing with Thrawn here. So
no, I don't know a bunch, because frankly, other than like cliff notes, even like with the big leaks that have come out, there's no like Thrawn does this and Thrawn does that. It's nothing like that. So I just look at Lars Mikkelsen, and I don't know if any of you have seen House of Cards and the way he plays that character on there, and then obviously his performance on Rebels. I would think it's going to be a seamless transition, if I'm being honest. So
I'm not referencing so much as the actor's ability. Just
oh, I know where you're going with that, and I don't want to bring that up blatantly on air, and I'm more confident than ever that that's where they're going.
Okay.
Those books you're referring to, I'm assuming that we were. I'm not saying it'll be in these 8 episodes, but overall, I'm really confident that's where they're going.
You were saying that you feel that will be incorporated in some way?
I can tell you it's already been hinted at this in this series, like with actual dialogue on screen.
We don't have time to go into there tonight. That'll have to be another call, a phone call or something. Okay.
Just go back and listen to some of Balin Skull's dialogue in the series.
Okay.
Ty said not a Lord of the Rings joke, but it was an obvious nod. Makes me think Clerks 2 and Star Wars Lord of the Rings debate. Long time since I've seen Clerks 2. Don't know if I would have been in the right state of mind when I watched that movie either.
Then you're probably in the right state of mind to watch that movie.
Probably, knowing Kevin Smith. I love the transitions when Anakin is seen as Vader and Anakin. Yes, it was very well done. Jesse says, I think we'll see him again, possibly appearing to Sabine and Ahsoka together. Heir to the Empire. And this guy was listening. This guy gets it. Yes,
You know, I did catch that, but I
Yes,
forgot about it.
sir.
Yeah, I forgot about it.
You must destroy in order to rebuild. And then that was followed right up with greater good. Yep. So these guys know where it's going. What do we want going forward here, guys? Because even if Anakin is in it moving forward, I mean, there's a lot of ground to cover. You have Thrawn. You have to assume we're not done with Balin and Shin. You have Ahsoka still. You have Sabine. You have Ezra, right? I imagine they're not just going to end up in the next galaxy and, oh, there's Thrawn and Ezra having tea together. Let's just pick them both up and head on back. There's honestly, I'm just really intrigued because I have no fucking idea what the next thing we're going to see is. Like, there's literally nothing about any visuals of this new galaxy whatsoever. It's kind of a blank slate for truly the first time in Star Wars since it came out, really. Wants to the chat, to the guys on the panel, what do you want to see in the next few episodes? For me, it's Thrawn. This was a really big step for Ahsoka's journey, and I know there's a lot of Rebels fans that are dying to see Ezra.
Yeah, but I'm nervous about what we're going to get for Ezra. is this going to pay off, all this lead in? There are any number of different ways they could go about this. What they're going to actually give to us, what they're not going to give to us. They could even give us Ezra, like, very briefly on the last episode, and that's it.
Randy, Johnny, anything that you guys really are hoping to see or explore in this new galaxy? I mean, it sounds dumb. I just kind of like to know how it operates out there and what the differences between that and the known galaxy are.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. Obviously, Thrawn and Ezra are the big ones for me, but I kind of want to see, I want to see just, even if it's just a little hint, I want to see the hint of that threat that's out there in this brand new galaxy that we've never seen before. I especially if we get the whole idea of Ezra and Thrawn working together, if that happens. I'm not saying it does. I'm just saying if that did happen, I want to see just that little bit of that hint, just a small hint of that threat to make me go, okay, I can see why they're working together, or why they're helping each other, or this whole reason of bringing Thrawn back. I just want to just a little smidge. I don't have to see the big reveal. It doesn't have to be this gigantic space armada or whatever, but I just want to see something. Just the smallest hint that just gets me to go, okay, this is where we're going. This is going to be huge, and I can see exactly why this was done the way it was.
Ahsoka crosses over into the MCU. I think Ahsoka might be a little bit too OP for some of the MCU characters. Frankly, a lot of Force using characters. I know you're just joking around. Brings the Avengers to fight Thrawn. Yeah, and here's where we run into the problem is a lot of the people that have just seen Rebels probably view Thrawn as like just a villain. And it seems to me very clearly they're setting up for that to not be the case. So we'll see how that's received. I guess for someone who had, they do have the challenging aspect of this is they have people that have been reading the new Legends canon material, or they have people that have been watching Clone Wars and Rebels, and then, hey, the largest group of them haven't seen either in terms of just normies that watch this show. That's just a fact. That's the way it works out. And it goes back to the very first episode we did when we reviewed the first two episodes. It's like, I do sit here and wonder on an episode like this, did it work for someone who hasn't seen Rebels or Clone Wars? I seriously question it, other than they might go, oh, wait, that's Anakin. Wait, what? I would assume they're really fucking lost after this episode. I don't know any other way to put it. That's not in a negative light, because for me, it sounds terrible, but fuck them. I love what we got, right? But it does make you wonder, because if you want to do more of these, they still have to perform.
I think they answered enough. They gave enough detail that if you didn't know, you understand at the very least the base relationship at play here. You're muted.
Johnny, anything else you want to go to before we begin to wind down? I do got Zach's meme I'm about to put up here.
I mean, for me, the thing I want the most is I want to see that Thrawn tactical, the tactical brilliance of Thrawn at play. That's one thing as a character. He's always sort of been that, that cerebral, villain that's always sort of, he's the epitome of the you're playing chess, I'm playing checkers. type villain. Only in his case, it's usually the opposite. You're playing checkers and he's playing chess, and he's just whooping your ass left, right, and center. If you're playing chess, he's playing 4-dimensional chess. Like he can see that much of the field, and I want to see that at play here. I do think that we've sort of set the field in such a way that while everyone assumes Thrawn is the villain of this story, I don't think he is. I don't think this is we have to stop Thrawn from coming back to the galaxy. I don't think Thrawn is going to want to come back to the galaxy. I think he's going to want to face the enemy at hand and stop it. Because other than that, the only answer is, killing him, I guess. Because, if you just leave him stranded, he's sort of always a hanging thread, and I don't like that idea. But, I think you're going to get that unlikely alliance set up. I think we're going to get a very healthy dose of Thrawn in these last 3 episodes. I think this is probably the last time we've seen Hera until the last episode, where I think we're going to get the ghost reunion, as it were, with who's left on the board. So I think that's going to happen because, like I said, we still... Again, this is another one of those where the timeline has run amok. We still haven't got the moment where Zeb meets up with... I can never remember his name. Carson? Where Zeb meets up with Carson. What?
Agent Callus? Is that who you're referring to?
I'm talking Carson, the Republic.
Oh, okay.
The Republic,
gotcha.
Yeah, the Starfighter that he's with in the Mandalorian episode when we see him. So, I think we're going to see those two sort of get together in that final episode where, the Ghost is reunited and, the Republic is there battling back whatever this greater enemy is trying to fight its way in. So I think that's probably the last time we've seen them until then. So I just want a great story. I want to be enthralled with this story. I want the nuances. I want I want the characters to play. I'm not at all concerned about Thrawn because, he's being portrayed by a phenomenally talented actor. So I'm not at all concerned about that. If there's one thing Filoni's done well, it's capture the essence of Thrawn. So I want to see what is at play here, because I do think there's a lot more at play than people are expecting. Most of us are expecting this is we have to stop Thrawn. Well, I don't think that's the story at play here, mostly because, of knowledge of the character, right? We've done a pretty good job of, painting around the Thrawn picture, but Thrawn has always been a character whose concern is survival. For himself, for his people, for his beliefs, for his passions, for art. As crazy as that sounds, he's always been about survival. And I think that whatever is in this galaxy is a threat to that survival.
So I would say this. I think, again, it goes back to some stuff Balin Skull said earlier in the series. I do think we'll eventually get to that. Okay, we need this unlikely alliance to stop whatever this threat is. But I do not think there's a chance it's happening in these 8 episodes. Like, I think we're still way too early in the story, which sucks because there's a strike going on. And remember, these guys want to do season 2 of Ahsoka before a Filoni movie. I don't think you get that till the bloody movie, because I think it comes back to Balin's line of you have to destroy in order to rebuild. Now, let me ask you, you just said you know the character Thrawn, and I believe you do. I think we all do to some extent. And now I want you to think about the New Republic that we've seen in this series. And I want you to tell me that Thrawn is going to be completely trusting of those clueless, inept idiots.
I don't think Thrawn would be trusting of the Senate as a whole. I think there are members of it he would be trusting of, because they understand the bigger picture. I think, again, this is one of those times where it's unfortunate, you don't have You can't call on Carrie Fisher to, Luke Skywalker her way into this, because obviously she is a person that I think Thrawn would be able to interact with in a way that he would see the brilliance behind that. She's almost the flip side of the Thrawn coin, in the sense that she is more political in her tacticality and does it phenomenally well until, like, she wants peace until they need to fight. And when you have to fight, you have to fight. And she respects that. I think that's something Thrawn would have been able to speak to. I think he won't work with Mon Mothma. I don't think that would ever play, because he would see through her as sort of the politician who only cares about her own survival, which is sort of what I personally feel about Mon Mothma. So I don't, I think there's players on the board that Thrawn can deal with and respect. Obviously, the Ghost Crew is one that I think he can respect, because they went toe-to-toe with him and succeeded. So, I think, like I said, I said this back, where I've said it in episode 1 or episode 2. I know I said it in one of the first, prior to this, that we're seeing what is essentially the birth of the Resistance. And I think that plays here. So I think that Thrawn would be able to cooperate with those elements, the people that see the threat of, the First Order eventually, and the remnants of the Empire and all of those things. So could he coexist with the Senate? No. Could he interact with the Senate? No, because like you said, they're politicians. Thrawn does not, he has no use for politicians that don't see the bigger picture. And I don't think any of them do.
Thrawn himself is just not politically savvy. Like, that's been the whole journey in his canon books, that he just doesn't get politics, doesn't want to get politics.
He uses politics as a means to an end, and that's it.
I just think, honestly, I would love nothing more than to see, the Chimera come out of hyperspace in that ring with other things at the end of episode 8, and have that same fucking transport that were those Republic transports we just seen, and get their comeuppance. That would be.
I think the only problem with that, though, is that pretty much just literally just takes a giant dump on the entirety of the sequel trilogy.
How?
Didn't they make an entire point of, commenting on the peace?
That's already out the fucking window as far as I'm concerned. Like, these guys jump over their own canon fucking daily and in this own series. You're right.
I'm just saying, right. I don't think they do that only insofar as because those are the the episodic films. I don't think they can sort of crap on them in that blatant of a fashion.
They've crapped on each other. Did you not watch The Last Jedi followed by The Rise of Skywalker?
That was a different kind of crapping.
I just don't think that matters. They need content, right? At the end of the day, you need content. I do think that you're on the right track. I think whoever ends up battling, Thrawn is going to fight someone there. It's not just going to be, let's shake hands and get ready for whoever else is coming. No, the Imperial Remnant is going to be a thing, and it's going to be a fight. And I just think the Republic, or not necessarily the Republic, but the people fighting them are going to view it as, oh, they're just trying to take over again. And Thrawn's going to view it as, no, we're getting ready for this unknown threat because you guys aren't going to help. You're just going to make matters worse. I think the thing that makes the most sense is you have the Mandalorians and the pirates and the mercenaries and kind of like what you said, the birth of the Resistance, a fragment of the New Republic, all break off and form this like militia, and that will be what goes up against the Remnant, and very likely end up coming together.
To me, it's very clear that Hera's walking away from.
Wouldn't you?
Everything. Oh, absolutely. She's not. Hera is a wartime consigliere. You know, she's the one you go to when the crap hits the fan and you got to fight. She's not there for the politics of the crap. You know, that's not her style.
All I've seen from the New Republic, in every way so far, whether it's the Mandalorian or here, is wow. These are the people that won the war. Well, not really. They're just the people benefiting from the people that won the war. And
They didn't do the actual fighting. They just
it's a travesty that this is what was, you know.
Akbar did.
Well, yeah, but you know, Akbar's another one of those. You know, he sort of fits in the Leia mold. You know, someone who sees the bigger picture, fought in the war. It just plays back to that point Hera made when she was in front of this, you know, the senators. You didn't fight. You can tell who fought and you can tell who didn't.
We're going to bring up Zach's meme and go around the table one last time. Anything you guys want to bring up, do so. And then we'll do Johnny's favorite part, our rankings. So here's the meme that Mr. provided for us. I mean, he's not wrong. Very, very much on point. I dig it. All right. We'll go reverse this time. Johnny, final thoughts on the episode. I would ask you where it ranks for you among all Star Wars, but that, you know, it's hard to do. It's hard to even rank it amongst all Star Wars TV. Probably you need time for that. But just your thoughts in general to close things out and cap that off with your score. Now, to recap the scoring system for you, sir, the way it is the most that you can give an episode is 5 lightsabers. They can be red, blue, purple, green, yellow. I don't give a shit. But 5 lightsabers is as high as you can go. Now, it was just meh is a blaster. And you hated it. It's a thermal detonator and you're just blowing it up. Where does this one rank for you, sir? And your final thoughts first.
Well, it delivered. You know, this episode, the previous episodes before this loaded the bases, and this episode had the opportunity to either be that big grand slam that brings it all home, makes everybody happy, makes the crowd happy, makes the home team happy, and makes everybody watching the game happy. And it also had that opportunity to be the bases loaded, ground into a double play that ends the game and your season's over. It hit the grand slam, and it hit it far. And it delivered on every front that I wanted it to. You know, I had a lot of expectations heading into this episode based on what had come previous to it, and it delivered. It delivered on all fronts. There's really nothing. We've talked about these shows, and every episode to this point has had something that I can poke at and be like, well, this didn't work for me, or I didn't like this, or that wasn't as enjoyable. And, you know, this episode didn't have that. You know, there was really nothing in this episode that I can point to and be like, well, I didn't like that. You know, I liked everything from the interactions with Anakin and Ahsoka in the world between worlds to the interactions with Hu Yang and Hera and Jason on planet, you know, to Jason in, you know, tapping into the Force and actually hearing the battle in the world between worlds, I think is huge. You know, seeing those little interactions with Hu Yang, just all of the things that this episode delivered on so many things, like even the Carson stuff, I thought had the potential to be sort of wasted time, but it delivered, you know, and I don't have anything bad that I can point to in this episode and say it was bad. It sets the table for what's to come in such a way that I'm excited for what's to come, which is something I can't say I've felt for anything that they've done in the Disney era at the halfway point. You know, by the halfway point, you're sort of, okay, what's next? Let's just get to the ending. I'm done with this already. You know, Obi-Wan came the closest. So I guess what it boils down to for this is a broken scale means I can't rate it as accurately as I would like. So, since we're limited to, you can only give half points and full points, and there's no quarters, because I'd like to say this is a 4.7, 4.75. This is nearly perfection, but I don't do perfections. Nothing is perfect, because there's always something you can point to when you get right down to it and nitpick, be it the fog or the stage craft. There's always something you can point to and be like, that didn't quite work so well for me, when you get super nitpicky, because there's always something. But I also don't necessarily believe in perfection, or haven't found it yet. Nothing, not even episode 5 is perfection. It's close to perfection. It's almost perfection, and I've never seen perfect. This isn't perfect. It's close. So I guess, again, since the scale doesn't let me go higher than 4.5 without giving it a 5, and I don't think it's a 5, but it's like a 4.59 repeating. I mean, I know you're going to round that down to a 4.5 on your scale because it's broken. So
at the end of this, once the 8 episode, and it won't be on our 8 episode review, it'll be after that, we will come back and rank the 8 episodes. It might be different.
It's going to be hard to top.
It'll be, I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being the best episode in the series. Randy, final thoughts, and you're thermal detonating this, aren't you? Yeah, I see it all over your face.
So I'd like to give a little, before I give my final thoughts, I'd like to give a little nod to the fact that they threw a nice little Jedi Fallen Order Easter egg in there when she's holding the destroyed map and she's hearing the voices, because that's one of the things in that game that you do is you pick up on things that have happened just by touching objects. So I thought that was a nice little touch there for sure. As far as final thoughts on the episode, I loved it. There's plenty of emotional moments for me there, a lot of nostalgia and just, like sitting there just going, oh, they did this, oh, they did that. It's just like that nice little kid at Christmas feeling. I'm really excited to see how this sets up for the final 3. Obviously, they left it off on a great spot. They didn't ruin anything or surprise us with anything. It's just Ahsoka making her way to wherever the Purgle takes her. I mean, we know essentially where it's taking her, but it's just the idea that we just don't know. And I think that's going to be, it's just going to be fun to see this new galaxy, and I'm really excited for that. I thought the story was just very well done this episode. Definitely one of my favorites so far of the series, just because I feel like the character development was right up there. The storytelling was right up there. The music and the effects, they were all done so well. And everything fit. It's not like they strayed in any way, shape, or form. Every little piece that they threw out there just kind of wove together nicely into the story. And that's kind of what you always want. And on top of it, it felt like Star Wars. That's what one of the things we always talk about is it needs to feel like Star Wars. And so far, the entire series has just been a return to what we all felt when we first saw the original trilogy when we were younger. And I think that's, all the credit goes to what Dave Filoni has done so far with the writing and just how he has brought the story along. I'm going to keep, obviously so far, how can you not trust Filoni? I mean, I've seen all the memes and things like that where people are just praising Filoni, rightfully so. The man has brought us the best Star Wars content we've seen in God knows how long. And I'm not saying Andor was bad. Andor was great too, but I'm just talking about just the feel of Star Wars. I'm not going to say it was a perfect episode. Obviously, there was a couple things that I kind of hoped to see, but didn't. So it was little minor disappointments that I'm just throwing away just because it's too good of an episode to really worry about that stuff, because I know I'm going to get to see the stuff anyway at some point. But I'm going to go with 4.5 on this for sure.
So we got back-to-back 4.5s. Tommy, final thoughts on the episode and your score.
I definitely agree that this is going to most likely be the best episode of the series, and I'm also going to give it a 4.5. Only criticism is I feel like they spent a little bit too long with the Purgle. That only criticism I have not said yet. I feel like we spent just a little bit too long with the Purgle sequence.
I didn't mind the Purgle sequence. I just thought they were a little repetitive with things down on Cetos. I thought there were things that could have been, cut.
Yeah, well, I can extend it to some other stuff. It felt like we spent a little bit too long with certain parts of the episode. Felt like we could have kept things moving, but also maybe that's just the desire to keep seeing the story play out more. But yeah, I'll stick with 4.5.
I thought there was also an opportunity to go back to some classic Skywalker themes and like in terms of the music in this episode that they passed on, which surprised me because it is Kevin Kiner. Not to say that the music was bad, but like those two things are pretty significant things for me that don't allow this to be a perfect episode. So did you see your 4.5 as well, Tommy? I don't know if this will ever happen again, but across the board, we are unanimous with a 4.5 out of 5 for this episode. It delivered, in my opinion. I'm sure there's going to be people that wanted more of Rex or wanted Obi-Wan. I think, we'll see on the reception of the episode and how it does, but like, they have an opportunity over the next several years here to still utilize Hayden Christensen in big, important moments. And I have a hunch they're going to do that because I don't know how much Mark Hamill wants to be involved moving forward. And I mean, Hayden Christensen is the chosen one. He's Anakin Skywalker. He can basically pop up in any Force story that you're going to tell and have him fit better than Luke would, in my eyes. So, final question here, though. Just simple yay or nay, guys, and we'll get out of here. You've now seen Dave Filoni write and direct the pilot for The Mandalorian. He also did episode 5 with that guy back at the cantina in Mos Eisley. He then did episode 5 of Ahsoka. Not Ahsoka, pardon me. The Mandalorian season 2, which was Ahsoka's episode. He did episode 6 of Book of Boba Fett, which was the Luke and Grogu and Ahsoka episode. He did the pilot for the Ahsoka series, and now he's done this. Have you seen enough from Dave Filoni to say, yes, I'm confident he can deliver a great not just good, not passable, a great Star Wars feature film on the big screen? Because the biggest knock for years when anyone would suggest this is he doesn't have experience. He doesn't have experience. He has quite a bit of fucking experience now. Where are we at with that, Randy?
Oh yeah. I felt that after seeing Clone Wars and Rebels, and now that I've seen his body of work with the live action stuff, yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to see what he does. I'm just all for it.
Tommy?
I would say Dave Filoni is absolutely as qualified as probably anybody else to jump into this franchise and give us a film. Let's just hope we actually see it.
Johnny?
I would say that, still film is a different animal than television. But as far as first-time directors for a feature film, I think he's more well-suited than most other first-time candidates. So the potential's there. I think he has all the qualifications to do it. I don't see why he can't.
I absolutely have confidence that Dave Filoni could and will deliver a really good Star Wars feature film. And I'll go one step further, because for me, we talk about the visuals, which have been substantially better in this than in the Book of Boba Fett or Kenobi. For me, I don't think there's anyone more qualified to tell a Star Wars story on the big screen than Dave Filoni is, simply by understanding the Star Wars story and lore better than literally any Hollywood director that you're going to hire. That doesn't mean he couldn't co-direct one, by the way. Co-directors are a thing. That happens. It happens a lot, actually. So he may end up, settling to be a co-director at some point, but I truly don't think there's anyone more qualified. Chosen Night Wolf gave it 5 out of 5. Jesse, 4.5 out of 5. And Zach, 4 out of 5. And of course, I just now get work done that Unanimous would have been disrupted had I been on. I get it. I understand. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Ahsoka, episode 6 next week. We'll see you there. Sad, guys. There's only 3 weeks left already somehow. I guess that's the bummer when you get 2 episodes right out of the gate in an 8-episode series. But let's enjoy it while it's here. Have a great night.